Oh no, those are my happiest days. They were excellent, excellent days. The teachers, we had good teachers, and they really taught us well.
No, what I meant, Pauline, was it was a great advantage because you could sit there and listen to the older
That's
students going
right.
through their recitations,
That's right. Yes,
and
we
it
could.
probably helped you more so than just one grade
That's
being.
right. Very much so.
Yeah. Do you have many memories at country school? Did they have water,
Well,
electricity?
we when I first started at Edgewood, we didn't have electricity at all, and just a pot-belly stove. And in the belfry, we kept our bucket of water where we all drank from the same pitcher. And then the next winter, they installed a furnace, a large furnace, and that just sat on the main floor, one corner of the room. And we did have electricity. And when I was in the 7th grade, they moved the wooden schoolhouse next door, and they built a new two-room brick school with the modern conveniences then. But then I only attended that school one more year, and I graduated from the 8th grade.
Did you find school easy, Pauline?
Yes, I always had good grades. I liked school very much.
Mm-hmm. And do you still keep in touch with any of your classmates in 8th grade graduates?
Well, there aren't very many of them left anymore. I may be the only one left. But we did for a long time.
Do you remember your teacher's name?
The one I liked the best, I remember several of them, but the one I liked the best that had the biggest influence on my life is Maud Signal.
What grades did she?
Well, she taught all grades, but I think she taught, she taught all the grades until we had the new school, and then she taught the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grades.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember when you were in country school in the younger ages, did you used to have Christmas programs you'd have to practice for?
Oh, yes, we did. Those were big events.
Hang a sheet across the front of the room?
Oh, yeah. The boys would have to pull them.
Armistice Day, the end of World War I. Do you remember that?
On November 11th, 1918, it was a bright sunny day, and my brother and I were walking down Edgewood Road. It was just a dirt road then. And about halfway to school, we heard a lot of noise coming from the vicinity of town. And we didn't know what it was. And it wasn't until later in the evening that we heard that it was Armistice Day, that the armistice was signed. I remember that.
Did you have your folks have a telephone back then?
When my father went into business for himself, then we had a telephone. That must have been about 1922, I think.
Mm-hmm. Party line, I suppose?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Did girls have girlfriends back then that they would get on the phone and call their girlfriends and talk to them?
No. I didn't.
Phones was strictly for
business.
business, yeah. Did you ever pick up the receiver and listen in to see what's going on in the neighborhood?
I didn't know you could do that.
Until when?
Until we didn't have a party line anymore.
When you graduated from the 8th grade, did you graduate, did you get your diploma from this Edgewood or Edgewood school?
I did, but we had to go to Marion to get the diploma because the Linn County Courthouse was in Marion at that time yet. So we had to take the streetcar and go way down to Marion to get our 8th grade diploma. Mm-hmm. That was 1923.
1923. Who would have been the superintendent back in those days?
Lulu B. Sechrist. I'll never forget that. She used to come visit us with her horse and buggy. And we always sat real quietly while she was there.
Let's talk about some of your memories years ago. Do you have any memories of Christmas? Was Christmas a fun time at your house?
Well, Christmas was never an extravagant time, but we never had a Christmas without a Christmas tree. No matter how short of money my parents were, we always had a Christmas tree, always. And I remember one especially when we still lived downtown. There was a beautiful doll under the Christmas tree for me, and I took a hold of it. It was one of those old dolls with the curly hair and kid skin body. My mother made her a beautiful pink dress. And I went into the kitchen, I laid it on the cupboard, and my youngest brother had just learned to walk, and he reached up and dragged it off the cupboard, and the head was porcelain, and it broke into 1,000 pieces. So my dad had to go to Killian's the next day. In those days, you were able to buy another china head and attach it to the body of that doll, so they repaired it for me.
Head transplant.
Head transplant.
Was your mother a good cook?
Wonderful cook. She used to do housework for some very wealthy people in Czechoslovakia, so she really learned how to cook.
And she cooked all the traditional Czech
Yes,
dishes?
Yes, she did. Baked kolaches. She knew how to fix meat until, boy, that was wonderful.
What was some of your favorite Czech dishes that she used to fix?
Oh, boy, let's see.
Were all of them good?
Well, she sure could make round steak a lot better than I can. I don't know what she did, but it tasted better than mine. And she would make dill gravy with dumplings. That was good. And she was really good at baking. She didn't bake pies and cookies until she learned how later on, but she would bake the Czech pastries, kolaches and babovka and things like that.
Did Czech ladies, did they make Christmas candy at Christmas time?
No, not, at least we never did.
Christmas Eve, was there any family traditions like
yeah, that was a family tradition. That was called Szczedry Večer. And we would have a fish,
carp perhaps?
carp, I think it was, and the trimmings, and Mother, I don't know how Mother did it, because Dad usually wasn't working at that time, so that was the day that they would dress the Christmas tree. Mother would bake a strudel, and she'd make vanochka, that's a braided bread, and do all those things. That last day, we dressed our tree 2 weeks ahead of time. But we always had a good supper, and my dad would say the prayer, and then we'd eat, and then we kept the door shut where the Christmas tree was. And after supper, then my dad would go into to that room where the tree was, and he'd pretend he's talking to Santa Claus in there. And then he'd ring a bell. I still have the little bell when Santa Claus would leave, and then we'd go in there and have our few gifts that we had. That was our Christmas.
Did you believe in Santa Claus until?
For quite a while, but
Did I ask you, did you actually have candles on the trees?
yes, we did.
The clip-on?
Clip-on.
Okay.
They were beautiful, but they were dangerous, and my folks would never let us light them unless they were sitting right there beside the tree.
And then Christmas Day, would you have a?
Then we had a roast goose and dumplings and sauerkraut. First we'd go to church, and then we'd have that good dinner. And then sometimes we'd visit relatives, or sometimes we just stayed home.
You painted a picture like when I have in my memories that when you come home from school, the house was full of good smells of food being prepared.
And Mother was.
Would she ever have anything for you when you come home from school?
Well, she always had a cup of coffee for us, but
Coffee.
but we'd put a lot of milk in it. And if she didn't have anything baked, we'd have some of her homemade rye bread.
Yeah. Was that common for children to drink coffee then?
Yes, it was. My aunt used to have a goat a long time ago, and I remember when we had coffee at her house, they would put in a teaspoon of that goat's milk, and it would just color it. It's so strong.
Really? Yeah. Was your dad a fun type guy, or was he serious?
No, Mother was serious.
Yeah.
My dad was a jokester.
Yeah. Of course, back this would have been during the Prohibition. Did he make wine and
He
beer?
made wine. but he never bootlegged or anything. But he made wine. Sometimes he drank more than he should have. Mother got mad.
He made good wine. Was bootlegging quite common in the?
Well, I was too young to know, but I heard my parents talk about it.
And then as you got older, was it expected that the children would help in the gardens? And
Oh,
along with their
definitely.
folks?
And we never got an allowance, and we were never told what to do. We knew what we had to do. Our family always worked together.
What was the? Your dad was still painting.
Oh, yes. He was painting. By that time, he was in business for himself.
So a lot of the garden work would have been up to your
My
mother,
mother,
and
my
the
mother and my
children.
brother Godfrey did a lot of that work here.
So the kids wouldn't gripe about it. They just knew it was a job, their
Yeah,
job.
you had
and
to
they
do it,
did
yeah.
it.
Well, it wasn't really that bad. Mostly we raised what we kids used to have to do. They raised onions from seeds. And if you don't think that's hard to raise, you had to crawl between the rows and use a fork to clean the weeds out. And oh my, that was a job. And in May of 1919, I think it was, I was out in the field helping weed onions, and we heard a terrible, terrible noise coming from the vicinity of town. And I could see debris flying up in the air, and that was the day the starch wheels blew up.
Really?
And believe it or not, I don't hardly believe it myself, that fork flew out of my hand, way out here.
Did your folks ever mention if they lost any friends in that explosion?
No, they never did.
What would have been a typical day in the summer and during produce time? Like what time would you get up in the?
Well, the folks always got up about 5 o'clock. Had to milk the cow and do the chores first. And, well, just to go outside and, you know, while the things were growing, you had to weed them and cultivate them and do whatever had to be done. I didn't really work that hard in the fields. I did all the housework while Mother was out there. And
Would they have been going to the market yet, taking their produce to
oh
the
yes,
market?
my folks went to market for 40 years.
And if they would go to the market and they didn't sell, it was a bad day, or if they didn't sell everything, then what would they do with the leftover? Bring it back home, or?
Well, my brother and I learned to be salesmen early. We would go peddling in the neighborhoods up on the east side and knock on the doors and, would you want to buy some vegetables today? And then if there was anything left, then they'd have to bring it home and store it until the next time and take it down again.
Did your folks have a cow
Yes.
for milk?
We had all our dairy products at home.
Poultry, chickens?
Poultry, ducks and geese.
Did you have to go out and gather the eggs?
Oh yeah, it was part of my job.
Did you ever get mad at the setting hens
And that's part
and whack
of it
them?
too.
How about rabbits?
No, just the first year that my folks lived here. They used to have rabbits when they lived in town. Then the first year that we moved out here, they raised rabbits, but that was all.
Pigeons? Did you ever raise
No.
pigeons to eat? And hogs?
That's another thing. When they first started gardening out here, 2 years they raised a hog through the summer, but then they quit that too.
When they raised hogs, would he do his own butchering then?
My father had a brother who was a butcher. He would come out and he would do all that for us.
Do you remember those days when they used to have to cut all the meat up? And how did they preserve it?
That was a problem. We never had a basement. We didn't have an ice box. It kept all right during the winter months, but when it was hot, it was kind of hard. In those days, the ladies used to render their pork. They'd put it into a big crock and pour lard over it. And that was deep fat processing, and that's the way they preserved the pork.
Did your mother ever cold pack?
No, not meat.
How about vegetables? Could you hold any vegetables over throughout the winter months?
Oh, we had a lot of potatoes and carrots and cabbage. Root vegetables they did.
In the wintertime, can you remember the kids, did they have a place to slide and ice
Yeah,
skate?
right
and-
down this 12th Avenue.
Right down 12th Avenue, right out, right out.
Right
in the-
outside the door.
This probably wasn't called, was it called a street or a road? And
Well, it was called a street,